Hello and welcome to Instant Transmission, a podcast where we discuss everything Dragon Ball and how we got this podcast allowed by Super Kami Guru. The next 3 episodes of Dragon Ball Daima are locked and loaded, and we're ready to continue our coverage of Chibi Goku's adventures in the Demon Realm. If you haven't seen our last episode, then this might be a weird spot to jump in, but I won't stop you. Feed your Tamagami and heat up a nice hot plate of bugs because we're about to head deep into Dragon Ball Daima with our coverage part 2. I'm your host, Dayton, and once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Todd.
Hi.
And tonight's discussion covers episodes 4 through 6 of Dragon Ball Daima, and we are continuing this coverage of the sub. A lot has happened in the first 3 episodes, and I highly recommend listening to our part 1. Our journey picks up with Kid Goku, Kid Supreme Kai, and Glorio waking up after finding their plane has been stolen after an eventful evening with a pack of bandits at some remote demon town. The rest of our heroes, or side characters, are still waiting on Bulma to finish repairs on the Supreme Kai's old ship so they can meet up with the others in the Demon Realm. And with all of that covered, was there anything you wanted to add before we got things started, Todd?
I think this time we can jump right into it. I think we jump on episode 4, right?
Yeah, episode 4, which is titled Chatty. And Daima episode 4 kicks right off where we left episode 3, with our main cast, Glorio, Supreme Kai, and Goku wandering through the desolate lands of the demon world, pondering how they will overcome the loss of their plane. And Goku suggests flying, but Glorio points out how heavy the air is and that they probably wouldn't make it that far. And I actually really like the way they depict this, where Goku's actually able to push off the air. It's so heavy.
The visuals for this are really, really cool. I like this a lot. I'm a little bit torn on this, if only because it's one other level or one more layer of bringing down the power scaling for Dragon Ball, which, again, sometimes they feel a little bit heavy-handed with this stuff, but also I like getting to have more low-key, low-power Dragon Ball. So I have very mixed feelings about it. How do you feel about that, Dayton?
I'm not as put off by it, just because I know that they're going to great lengths already to try and bring down the power levels. And if this is just either a reminder or just adding that extra layer, I'm fine with that. We're going for kind of a vibe here. And if this is the way that they want to do it, I'll let them hand wave it. I don't consider Daima something that I need to look at too deeply as far as how hard and fast the rules are. I'm just here to have fun, so I'll let this fly.
Yeah, or not fly in their case, which we actually are going to see as they start kind of hoofing it on foot because they don't have a plane, which it seems like planes are kind of or they call them planes. They're kind of like pseudo spaceships, but they seem to be the easiest way to get around in the demon realm. They're not as hindered by the heavy air, but our heroes do need to fly briefly to get over I didn't write down the name of it. It's like the Void of Death or the Black Void or something.
Sea of Darkness.
Sea of Darkness. There it is.
Yeah, and this is this little event here turns into a slightly larger event when they start floating over, and this weird tadpole looking giant monster thing with big teeth and giant mouth jumps out, and it goes to chomp up Goku, who's currently still a little weird with his new body and the heavy air, and he actually has to kind of be saved with Glorio stepping in and dispatching the beast quickly.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick exchange. It's pretty well animated. There's nothing really spectacular about the choreography, but it's also not bad by any means. And it's fun to see Glorio in action here for once too, especially in hand to hand. And he handles this tadpole dragon with ease, which allows our heroes to get to the other side of the Sea of Darkness and continue trekking on. Before they get attacked by another random assailant.
This feels like in Pokemon when you're trying to get somewhere and you have to go through a bunch of tall grass and just crap keeps happening to you. That's the way I kind of felt about these encounters.
A little bit. At the very least, they're kept very brief, fortunately. This is the fun one about this, though, is actually that Goku very quickly, before anybody else, before Glorio or Shin, says, oh, somebody's trying to ambush us, and gets in his fighting stance. The other two are like, what are you talking about? And then this giant ogre thing with a club comes out and attacks them. I think Goku basically beats it in one hit, but this kind of reveals to Glorio that Goku can sense ki, and reveals to us, the audience, that Glorio has no idea what ki is.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we'll learn a little bit more about the demon realm later. But this is kind of, I consider this kind of a world building moment where they don't really deal with key energy. But they've come up with other ways to, I guess, do key like things that we'll be learning a lot about here soon. But yeah, it's kind of a big reveal with Glorio. And they continue forward after this little event, and they come across this small town. I'm sorry, not a small town, a small shop. And this is where they get some food, and they bargain with a demon that looks a lot like Thief from Sandland for transportation.
Oh, good call. I did not make that connection. There are a couple other beats though that I thought kind of connected to Sandland as well that I want to talk about as we get to them. The shop here though is super cool. It's like it looks like a little teapot, and it has this guy who looks like Thief and presumably his partner, his wife, whatever the case is. They get some like fried lizard, drink some bad tea, I guess, or something. But they're looking for transportation. They ask for a plane from the shopkeeper, and he says, I don't have a plane, but I can give you a sky seed, which we as the audience don't know what that is. So I was eager to find out when they said that.
Yeah, and Goku's also sold some souvenir bugs with different like medicinal properties. One of which apparently is supposed to be like a sensu bean, is the way it was sort of pitched. But these things are also sold as souvenirs, so we don't know as the audience whether we're being sold snake oil or not.
One of the other ones though that was important here, or at least that caught my attention at the very least, is one that's called a join bug, which
Oh yeah.
they specifically explain it's meant for two people. You feed one half of the bug to two different people, and they join together. And Goku's like, "Oh, so fusion then."
Yeah, it's really funny. It's stuff that we sort of recognize in the Dragon Ball universe, but it's got that demon realm kind of twist to it. So I think it's pretty fun.
I mean, there's no way this doesn't come back in some way. It has to. So I'm really curious to see if we get some sort of new fusion with this join bug. That would be really interesting.
Something's got to happen with these bugs. I feel like this wasn't put here as a red herring. Something's going to come out of it, or it could be a gag. You never know.
Yeah, I think I would be okay with it being, if it was like a goofy fusion gag or something, that might be kind of fun. But we kind of move forward with figuring out what this seed is, and we find out it's basically like it's literally what it says. It's a giant seed from a giant plant, a fiend flower, I think they say, and it's basically attached to a catapult effectively.
Yeah, and it's kind of hilarious. We see Glorio, Supreme Kai, and Goku. They all just sit on this thing, grab on, and put their heads down, and they're launched far into the sky at incredible speeds. And I don't know about you, but did this remind you of any other transportation method that's been used in Dragon Ball?
I actually didn't make any connections, but as you're saying that, the only other one that I can think of is Tao Pai Pai with him throwing.
That's the first thing I thought of, is him just standing on those beams that he rides around on. It felt like a throwback to me.
That's another good call. That one didn't connect with me as much, but actually it is very, very similar. This does have like I like that it feels otherworldly too, though, with like the big seed. And I mean, this just doesn't feel like a way that you would travel normally.
No. And I mean, I don't know what the intent of this travel actually is, because there's no landing gear in this thing, as we find out. So as it starts coming down, they're about to fall into the sea of darkness, and There's like a cliffside that they're also going to crash into right before it. And so they have to jump off at just the right time to make sure that they don't basically crash and die.
I also really enjoy the contrast that we have here of the Supreme Kai Shin is basically like freaked out. He's like, "Oh God, we're gonna crash," and Goku's just like, "Wahoo!"
Yeah, Goku's having a great time, and while everyone's holding on for dear life, his hands are up. It's a roller coaster ride for him.
It's really really fun. And so they kind of crash. Goku's like, "Hey, we can." We can keep going. We can fly, whatever. We've got stamina bugs. Glorio and Shin are like, I'm not eating any of those bugs. That's gross. And then they start talking about the Dragon Balls, the Demon Realms Dragon Balls, and we kind of get some history of or well, at least some lore of the Tamagami and how they are effectively. They've never been defeated. Nobody's ever collected all of the Demon Realms Dragon Balls and made a wish, including the Demon Lord Goma.
Isn't that interesting that there's the set, mind you, it's 3 Dragon Balls versus 7 that we're used to. And these Dragon Balls have never been used, which is also an interesting tidbit. And that I believe each one is in a different kingdom or planet, or I forget exactly what they're called. So they're spread across the different demon worlds.
Right. Yes, I think you're right. And another interesting piece is that they're not hidden. Everybody knows exactly where the Dragon Balls are, but nobody goes and tries to retrieve them because each one is protected by a Tamagami. And I don't know how strong these Tamagami are, but apparently stronger than anybody in the demon realm. So
I mean, Dabura was no pushover, and if he was strong enough to go get him, you figured he would have.
That's a good point. So yeah, if Dabura never used them, I mean, Dabura's, he's at least as strong as Perfect Cell. Like, we're talking pretty powerful. So these Tamagami had to be pretty strong. This kind of turns into, though, Goku basically being like, well, if they're that strong, then I want to fight them.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also, as they start talking about it, they realize that having a backup plan is probably not a bad idea, because if something happens to Dende, then Earth loses its Dragon Balls. Or even if they just can't find Dende, like if he gets hidden, there might not be a way for them to track him down. And so Glorio actually agrees with Goku. And so this is kind of their backup plan, their insurance policy to go and fetch these Dragon Balls. And I mean, Goku's just here for a good fight as far as I'm concerned. And he's definitely down to go fight some of the strongest beings in the demon realm.
Yeah. This is a fun turn of events. We're kind of getting to see like what the story is going to play out as here, likely. And as our heroes kind of continue their quest, they come upon another town where there's a bunch of the Majin here, just normal citizens, normal townsfolk, but they are kind of being oppressed by there's so many names, the Gendarme, I think.
I didn't know how to say it. Gendarmerie. I'm going to call them the police because that's easier for me to say.
Yeah, and that's basically what they are, right? It seems like they are working under King Goma, and they have these staves, and they are basically telling the townsfolk that, hey, King Goma wants more offerings, so you have to give us 3 gold coins each time that we ask. Otherwise, for each gold coin you cannot produce, we're going to take 3 years of your life away. And we even get to see this happen where one older townsfolk is unable to provide any coin, and they strap him up to this device. I don't even know what to call it. It's like a vacuum that sucks up his soul or spirit energy into what looks like a lava lamp.
I found this scene to be actually, for Dragon Ball, kind of brutal. Because these people are kicking and screaming, and they're dragged up to this machine, and this hose is like plugged into like the back of their neck, where their essentially their life essence is sucked out of them. Like I mean, the only comparable event that I have to this is when Cell was sucking people dry in his first form. Um, and mind you, this is just a brief little scene in what should be a little bit more of a lighthearted story. So for me, the contrast of this scene to the rest of the story made it feel like, I don't know, like a really horrific event.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like this though. I like that they're showing. I mean, it feels appropriate, especially for the demon realm, to be a little bit dark in this way. Even for a show that kind of has a definitely a lighter tone to it. But well, we see two things. One thing that I think we both kind of glossed over is the citizens also have these collars that is the collars are, it seems like the collars are used to like shock or harm or control the townsfolk or the people of the demon realm. And then following this event, though, there is this masked Majin that shows up with a smoke bomb, basically trying to help or save the villagers. And this figure quickly kind of fumbles their heroics as their bomb does not seem to work. And they find themselves basically getting held and handled by our police figures here.
Yeah, and oh man, this is where things get good because Goku decides to whip out his power pole and jump right into the action. We get this just beautifully animated scene of him twirling the power pole and then performing this spinning just sweep that takes out a swath of the guard's legs right out from underneath them. Goku leaps up and gets in between the Majin and the other guards, so she can't make her escape. When one of the goons steps forward to make his strike, we see Goku leap back, knocking a pile of alleyway trash into them. And as their guards drawn up, we see Goku leap forward, landing a hard landing like foot kick on the first guard's head, jumping off and avoiding another strike from a second guard while somersaulting forward and then bringing the power pole crashing down on top of him. When Goku lands, he parries the strike of a third guard, counter-striking with the blow of his own, and then cross-strikes two more. Like, it's such a beautiful scene.
Is gorgeous. And that's, I mean, you did a great description, and that's only like a portion of it here too, as the action kind of continues with Goku basically, I mean, just beautiful choreography with the power pole as he kind of like leaps up the alleyway, leaping off of the extended power pole. Him darting between the buildings is absolutely gorgeous, like super dynamic movement and angles. And then we find that these staves that our police guys have basically shoot laser beams. So Goku's kind of like running across the rooftop, dodging laser beams, and then leaps back onto the ground and continues his assault of just like one guy after another that he just beats up with the power pole, using it at one point to like hit one guy in the stomach while also propelling him to kick another guy on the other side, and then deflecting a bunch of the beams back, spinning the power pole. This is gorgeous. Like, as much as I have some slight misgivings on these kind of like heavy-handed ways of reducing the power level, the fact that it all results in this sort of combat and choreography is very well worth it.
Yeah, there's something special about when your feet have to be planted on the ground, right? And we don't know exactly how much Goku's power level is diminished. And so I'm not sure if one of these beams catches Goku off guard, if it could do some damage to him. Like, he's probably not in trouble, but he could be. I don't know. Some dude with a laser ring just about killed him in Dragon Ball Super, so everything's a threat as far as I'm concerned. A lot of this is animated very well. I think that first initial fight scene is beautiful. After he jumps off the building and lands and continues fighting, I think that's very well done. I like how he ends it with actually running up a guy's weapon and like socking him in the stomach. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's even the punch to that guy in the stomach is like the way it's animated, where Goku knocks the guy back just a little bit, and then there's like the delayed after effect of the guy going flying away. I it's certainly not the first time that we've seen that in anime or Dragon Ball, but honestly, I love that effect every single time.
It's so fun. This is all this is very well animated. We've had a lot of like flashes where you want more fighting or you want more animation. This is for me the first real payoff in Daima where we actually get to see a lot of that beautiful new animation with reference to that older style of fighting that we really like in Dragon Ball. So I think this for me is the hook I've been waiting for as far as fighting and that new era of animation. This whole scene I'm over the moon for, and it's not even like a boss fight or anything. It's just a fun scrap with a bunch of goons.
Yeah, and I want to point out, because I want to talk about this as we go through the episodes. Goku he's just in his base form. We haven't seen him. I don't think we've seen him transform at all up to this point in Daima, and so it's hard to say, at least at the moment, if he even can transform in his current state, or if the people that he's fighting up to this point just haven't been worth him transforming, if they're just so weak that he's like, I can do this in base form. This is no issue.
Which is definitely not beyond Goku.
Exactly. But this does kind of turn into, there's still some of these gendarmerie, or the police, that are now like, who the heck are you? We're going to arrest you. And Glorio and Shin are basically like, oh, we need to get out of here.
Yeah, the situation's getting out of hand, and they covertly kind of make their way off scene. And once they're kind of alone and away from that mess of a situation, they're approached by the masked Majin, who unmasks herself, revealing a woman underneath. And that's where this episode ends. And I want to kick this discussion off real quick with did you see the Daima movie in theaters?
I didn't. I really wanted to, but I wasn't able to make it happen.
Man, I haven't seen it either. But it sounds like it covers just the first 3 episodes. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of it, yes.
If this 4th episode is added onto that, I think that is a spectacular movie experience. You get a lot of story. You get a big payoff fight at the end. I love this episode, and being able to see this episode in particular in the big screen would actually be such a treat, I feel.
I didn't think about this at all, and I really like your point about this. I think really just that action sequence, and then kind of ending on that cliffhanger reveal of this new character kind of introduced to the group. I think that would have been a great spot to end. Do you think is it particularly the action sequence that you think would have been best to have in the movie as like a way to really draw people into Daima?
Yeah, and it's a beautifully animated action sequence, and it's fun. That's the big thing I want to kind of harp on a little bit, is that this was so much fun. All the things that Goku was doing, leaping from person to person, running up people's weapons, smacking trash at people. Goku's having a good time, and it looks like fun. He's having fun. I'm having fun as the viewer. And it's not a short scene either. This is probably the later half of the episode is all more exciting stuff. So you would actually get a pretty decent payoff seeing this on the big screen. I think we've had flares of great animation before this, but this is the longest set of sequences kind of bookmarked or set together that we've had so far. And so this, I think, is the biggest taste of what Daima could offer as far as a fighting experience that we've gotten so far. And on top of that, Dragon Ball at its heart has always been kind of a fighting show for me. And so I feel like I've really been missing that up to this point.
And it's funny, like especially as we get towards the end of these episodes, I want to talk about this more, but I get what you mean about the fighting. Like I'm also like, hey, I want to see more fighting. But it's funny because almost every single episode, I think even in these 6 episodes, like the first 6, there might be one episode that does not have fighting in it, maybe, because I think we get, at the very least, in the first episode, episode 1, we get at least a tiny little scrap between Goku and Vegeta before they turn into chibi bobbleheads. In, I think it's episode 3, there's the fight in the demon realm, basically in the tavern, where Goku's got like the burger in his mouth. It might have been episode 2. I don't remember that there was a fight in episode 2, but even now in episode 4, we've got another fight sequence against these the police, effectively. But at the same time, this is also, to me, kind of the first one that's really like scratched that fighting itch. And even then, it's not quite all the way there for me.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's very it's like when Goku's fighting all the Red Ribbon Army folks, where it's less about like the challenge and more about just the on-screen eye candy, I guess. And this isn't like a final boss fight or anything. This wasn't built up. This was just kind of a taste, and Goku getting warmed up here. So I'm okay with it. The previous fights were very brief, a little bit more slapsticky. Like, they didn't really give me much to sink my teeth into. So this is the first one where I actually got to see something happening. And yeah, I'm a big fan of it. So I don't think there's a lot I would change about this fight. I'm actually happy it's here. I'm glad they gave me something to really just gush about.
I honestly, I 100% agree with you. And I think I legitimately, the first time watching this, I was like in tears because it was just so much fun. And just getting to see Goku in action and with the power pole, no less, is just great nostalgia. I think the only thing that I'm kind of hinting at right now, or tiptoeing around at the moment, is that we're not getting fights with stakes or fights that have like tension in them yet. I hope that we do. We just haven't gotten there yet.
And I think we've talked about this at the end of last episode, where it feels like they're taking their time, or a little bit too long, to get to the meat and potatoes sort of thing, right? If this was episode 2 rather than episode 4, I think, because I feel you now. Like, I feel like we'd be whistling a different tune here. But it feels like it's taken kind of a long time for us to get to this point. And it's really even not that bad, honestly. But we know it's a shorter series. We know it's going to be roughly 20 episodes. And we're, about a quarter of the way through it. We're getting to a quarter of the way through it, and we still haven't really set up the stakes super well yet.
Yeah. And it's funny because I do feel like the pacing it's on the slower side, but I wouldn't say it's slow. Like, I don't think it's bad in terms of pacing. In fact, if I knew that this show could just go on and on and on, or had way more episodes, like 100, 150, whatever, I would be totally on board for this pacing. My issue with the pacing is knowing that we have such a short episode run, and that it's taking so long to get to the actual conflict and tension for the story here. That is really my only problem with the pacing at all.
And sometimes when they're telling the story, sometimes they're very economic, and sometimes they're not. For example, the Dragon Balls, and them revealing or coming up with the plan to go get the 3 Dragon Balls. We had to rehash everything that we've already discussed about Dragon Balls, right? And this happens a few times where they bring up somebody and we have to rehash everything that we've already talked about with them. It hasn't happened yet, but there's a conversation about Supreme Kai's relation with other Supreme Kai beings that happens a little bit in the future, where there's new information, but we also rehash all the old information. And so it's not super economic. And this happens. I don't have a lot of points where it happens, but I'm just mentioning it because it's something that I've seen quite a few times already up to this point.
That's a good point. It definitely seems like it's so strange how this show feels like it's trying very hard to cater to people who are not Dragon Ball fans. And I think part of what you're talking about is them, the creators, trying very hard to make sure that non-Dragon Ball fans are in the loop. Which, I mean, okay, fine. It's just, this feels like Daima would feel like a very strange place to start your Dragon Ball journey to me. But I mean, I say that as somebody who's been a Dragon Ball fan for almost 30 years.
And I mean, it's a nitpick. Uh, right now, the way that they're setting everything up, a lot's going to depend on how things develop further on down the line. Because with a lot of buildup, you need a lot of payoff. So I'm not going to complain yet. If there's a lot of payoff later on, then I will be silent. It's all going to be built up for a good reason, and I will sit here and I will be happy. But if there isn't more payoff later on, then there might be some complaints. So they're setting the stakes up higher as far as my expectations, which could be a good thing. But it could also, that sword could cut two ways.
Yeah, I feel the same. We'll see how it goes, but we've got a little bit of trepidation here. I think that for the most part, we're just going to take us into episode 5.
Yes, episode 5, which is titled Pansy, and the masked girl reveals that her name is Pansy.
I actually wanted to talk about this briefly because I don't know. I didn't look. I don't know if there's a pun in here. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a flower pun. I don't know. What did you think about her name?
I was so mad because when they first revealed her, I went to the website. Like I paused and I went to the website. It was like, what is this person's name? Because I remember them announcing it on the official website. I was like, oh, it's the Masked Majin. Okay, cool. So I wrote that down. I was just like, all right, I'm going to make a note in here that I'm calling this person the Masked Majin, even though they haven't introduced themselves as that yet. And then 15 minutes of Dragon Ball later, she just takes the mask off and reveals who she is. I was so mad because I took longer tracking down her name than it would have for me to just keep watching and then just skip that part, because I thought the reveal was going to be a little later on or bigger or something.
Yeah, and I think 15 minutes is even generous. Like it's very, very quick that this character appears in the mask, then takes off the mask and says, "Hi, I'm Pansy." It felt more like a marketing thing, like when they revealed the Masked Majin on the internet before the show came out.
Like, who is this person? This mysterious Masked Majin?
Yeah, exactly. Just to drum up hype, and then the Masked Majin is revealed rather unceremoniously.
I'm going to go ahead and say that that's my biggest disappointment of Dragon Ball Daima so far, is that character's whole thing was just they dropped the ball. If you're going to obfuscate like a character and make them mysterious, actually do it. I don't know. Like, at least on the website, just have someone named Pansy and then just make like the costume a surprise, since it's, I don't know, whatever. I'll figure it out later, but I was kind of upset that I felt like they went to a length to build up this character and then there was absolutely zero payoff.
I could see that for sure. I've got some things I wanted to mention about Pansy here too, but we'll have to get a little bit deeper into the episode here. But Pansy basically asks our heroes, she's like, why the heck are you so strong, to Goku effectively? And she's like basically just drilling our heroes with questions like, where are you from? Why are your ears round? And then she finds out that they're going to the castle. I think it's Kadan Castle. And then she just continues to tail them. They're like, hey, we've got stuff to do. Peace. And she just continues following, asking questions.
Yeah, Glorio tells her to take a hike and she doesn't listen. And while she's tailing them, Goku starts whining about how he's hungry. And she kind of, like gets up in there and is like, hey, I got a rice ball. And this instantly wins over Goku's friendship. And this is where we start learning about her character. Apparently, she's a whiz at machines. She has magic, and apparently everybody in the demon realm has some sort of magic. And hers is like telepathy. She can like lift things with magic or something like that, but she's terrible at it and she mostly does machines.
I love this exchange, mostly just because of Goku, actually, because Pansy kind of shows off her magic of like levitating rocks or something, and it seems like it seems pretty weak. But she asks Goku if he knows any magic, and I mean, we know that Goku knows dozens of techniques, Kamehameha, instant transmission, all this stuff. But he takes this so hey. He takes this so literally, though, that, or maybe just because he understands the distinction between ki and magic, that his response to "Do you know any magic?" is, "I can touch my nose with my tongue."
That's I can't do that.
Me neither. So I mean, it's just so funny to me that he doesn't show off like, "Well, I got a Kamehameha or solar flare or something." It's just, no, that's not magic.
Admittedly, Goku has had encounters with magic, so
right.
He probably actually does know the difference between Babidi and I would even say fortune teller Baba does some magical stuff.
True.
And he's even gone to like the magical force and stuff like that. So Goku has run into magic and probably definitely knows that there's a difference between ki energy and magical energy. So I do like that he's I don't know if it's supposed to be that way, but I do like that he doesn't just start doing ki stuff.
No, I definitely agree. It's just his response to it to me is just funny.
Very childish.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that too as we continue moving forward, is Goku's personality. Like, I'm a little bit torn on it. It's not as bad as like Super writing, Dragon Ball Super Goku, but
let's pin that discussion for the end, because I do want to touch on that.
Yeah,
I think there's a decent amount to unpack there, both good and bad.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. But we kind of continue moving to, well, actually, we get a little bit of background as Pansy drills Shin about if he's a Glind, which seems to be like a sort of species, I guess. And we kind of find out like, oh, Dagesu is King Goma, or Degesu is King Goma's second-hand man. He's a Glind. And we already kind of know that Shin and Degesu are brothers, effectively.
I'm glad you took notes down about this, because I was just like, oh my God, I don't know, and I don't think I care.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more of that here moving forward in the future too. But kind of skipping past that, we basically get to the castle, Kadan Castle. And this is kind of where Glorio is basically like, hey, buzz off, Pansy. Like, they're not going to let you in here.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because we've had some, I don't know, maybe clues about what's about to happen, because Pansy actually offers them like a shortcut to get to the castle, and she seems to know how to get there, and Glorio's uncertain. And Glorio mentions his name, and the guards are like, oh yeah, I remember who you are. I guess you can go in. But Pansy kind of leans out from the side, and the guards kind of drop their guard and gawk at her, because apparently she's the princess of this castle, and their tune changes right away. So I want to point out something here, because I had an immediate thought, okay?
Pansy, I feel like we had the same.
Is a rich girl from a rich family who's a whiz at machines. Does this remind you of any other characters?
So, I mean, I assume you're going with Bulma.
Yes.
It's funny. So, a couple things. One, yeah, I'm a little bit like, I don't like the idea that Bulma is potentially being replaced here in that, like, basically character archetype. I don't know. I guess it's, it's in a different world, so whatever. But the other thing too, on top of that, you made a connection to Sandland earlier. This reveal, if I remember correctly, is almost beat for beat a very, very similar reveal to the princess in Sandland.
Oh, yeah, I did forget about that.
She was
Um,
the tech girl who came in, and they're like, "Oh, we don't know who this is," and then revealed later to be the princess of Forestland, I think it was.
I think even guards are the ones that revealed it too, just like here. So
It was. Yep.
yeah, that it is very similar. I guess I don't know. I guess if you're a rich girl, then you just tinker with machines. It's I don't I don't make the rules. It's just the way the world works. And if you're one of those rich girls out there listening to this and you have an obsession with machines, it's natural. Just lean into it.
Yeah, I kept thinking, I was like, this is, the princess reveal is like a pretty, it's, you could say it's a worn out trope, really, but Dragon Ball is an old anime.
It's
But
such
I
a
was like,
weird trope though, isn't it? Like is that do you see that anywhere else other than in like Toriyama's work? I mean you would know. I don't watch a ton of anime, but
not so much the tech and princess connection, but more so the, oh, I'm just a normal girl, and then revealed that she's a princess. You see in a bunch of stuff.
oh yeah. Yeah. I mean it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny that Toriyama copied his own work.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, the Sandland was originally written, gosh, I don't even know, 20 plus years ago, probably. It's just funny because we just watched the anime, so it feels very fresh in our minds.
That's right. Yeah, Sandland, I think if I remember correctly, it was in the early 2000s, so which shouldn't be that long ago if you ask me. But it is.
Feeling the age.
Oh god. Yeah, so I had to make a note about that because it was just too spot on, but either way, Pansy leads our crew over to King Kadan. And we see Pansy vouching for Goku's strength when the king questions it and even thanking Goku for saving his daughter. So he doesn't seem like that bad of a guy. But Kadan reveals that Glorio told him that he would bring him somebody who could defeat Goma. But Glorio would have to go out of the realm to receive them or to retrieve them. And that once Goma was defeated, Kadan would become the new Demon King in order to bring peace to the realms.
Yeah, so this is very interesting, especially because we're going to see Glorio specifically. I think Shin brings this up here in a little bit, but Glorio specifically approached King Kadan about bringing somebody here who is powerful enough to defeat Goma, not the other way around, which is, it's just interesting. Like, I'm still wondering what is going on with Glorio. Like, I mean, obviously Shin is skeptical or suspicious of Glorio for a number of different reasons.
And we haven't really talked about it this episode, but Glorio is very emotionless. He's very cold with the way he talks and the way he acts. There's almost no personality to him.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of want to go through the episodes more, but I want to circle back around to this like suspicious Glorio thing. But I think
I like this scene though because we also get a funny bit in this scene where Kadan offers Pansy for marriage for Goku. Obviously, once she gets older, and Goku refuses because he's already got a wife and kids, which is pretty funny.
I mean, the hilarious part about that too is the parallel between this and the original Dragon Ball with Goku's actual wife, where the Ox King offered Chi-Chi's hand in marriage to Goku.
I thought it was really fun. It was a great like reference to old content, and it was a good gag. And I like pointing out when Dragon Ball does a gag and it stays in flavor, in context of the universe. This was at the expense of nobody. It was funny.
I totally agree with you. It's a great callback. It's very on brand for Dragon Ball, and it's kind of Dragon Ball making fun of itself in a way. So it's a well done joke. I actually liked it quite a bit.
But King Kadan agrees to give them a replacement plane, but he also wants to see a demonstration of Goku's power. And so Kadan gathers a gaggle of his most seasoned warriors, and he offers them a raise if they can defeat Goku, who is really giddy to get into action.
This is going to be a fun to talk about. One of the things that I thought was really interesting here, and like I'm a little bit torn on this. So Goku, I think it was episode 3 where there was a guy in the tavern with like this massive axe, and Goku says something to the effect of like, "Man, you really could have hurt me with that thing." And we get into this scene where King Kadan basically tells his men, he's like, "All right, I want you to try to beat this kid Goku, but no weapons." And Goku says, "Oh no, let them keep their weapons. It'll be good training, but no guns though." Like, Goku has so many weird comments about weapons in this show. Like, one, why? Well, first off, he lets them keep the weapons, so whatever. He's strong. He could probably get hit by the weapons, no problem. But the no guns thing just seemed weird to me. I don't know if it's like he just thinks they're boring. I can't imagine he's like, "Oh, the guns are gonna hurt me. Like, I can't handle guns."
Yeah, even in original Dragon Ball, there's plenty of scenes where he's just getting shot and it's mostly annoying.
I mean, literally the first episode of the original Dragon Ball, Bulma shoots him in the head with a gun.
That's right. I think he's gotten a little stronger since then.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just a funny comment. Like, he's like, "No guns." I don't know. It just felt real weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to get some sort of explanation as to why. Like, no guns, they're boring. And then suddenly that goes away.
Yeah, 100%. Add 2 words to it, and I would have been like, "Oh, sure, fine." But despite my kind of like nitpicking on the commentary here, this action sequence is super fun. I kind of want to hear your take on this, especially in comparison to the last episodes, because again, this is my only complaint really is this is just another beatdown. This is Goku fucking flexing on dudes. There's no real like tension here or contest. He's just beating the snot out of people, and there's to me, a cool transformation. Like the first time we see Goku go Super Saiyan.
I have a nitpick about that transformation because I watched it frame by frame to figure out something. Okay, so this scene, I think this is a fun scene. I think it's a fine scene, but I don't need this fight after the last one we just had. It feels like we're double dipping in that situation.
Okay.
So that's why I rate this one more poorly, is because we just had this. I don't need second breakfast. The animation on this, I say, is fine because I'm holding Daima to Daima standards.
Okay.
It's not as fluid as the first set of fighting. We don't get like the fluid twirling into a sweep and as much motion as we got in the first fight. So I have some nitpicks about that because I have the other fight right before this one to compare it to. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, he's jumping off of people's heads and delivering punches and kicks that are sending folks flying in all these different directions. Like, it's a fun little scene. There is this interesting sort of transformation that happens. Because I had rewatched the scene a couple times. The transformation, Goku goes Super Saiyan. The transformation itself is literally just switching hair colors. That's not any of the actual fun animation. He switches hair colors and then he does like a key burst in all directions that sends everyone flying. And then once he sends, and it looks cool, right? We get this large flash, there's swirling ki around him, an explosion. And then when it all kind of like settles and we come back, we see Goku still in his black hair form, but he's got like this golden aura that's coating him and it looks badass. But I want to point out that the transformation is actually not animated. He transforms and then does an attack that's animated very cool.
I get what you mean, and I'm kind of like, I'm even scrubbing through it right now as we speak because it is
I'll
kind
keep
of
talking
like,
so that way you can look for it because you have to kind of watch it clip by clip because I was just like, man, I was like, that transformation was badass. Like, I really want to look at this and then compare it to other awesome transformations we've seen, like in the Broly movie, which I think we both bring up all the time, where the transformations in that, and there's multiple of them, are so good. The Super Saiyan transformation's good. The unveiling of Super Saiyan God is really good. This one, I'm very mixed on because he transforms and then does this key explosion attack, which looks really good. But the transformation itself, I would have liked a little bit more ceremony for.
I could see that, and I'm kind of looking at it here now. I think, to me, I think the reason why I mostly like it, but also agree with your complaints about it. I think, to me, the way that I'm interpreting it, and it could be interpreted either way, is that the blast that comes from him is less of a separate attack and more of like the blast was generated from the transformation, which is, I think that to me is why I kind of like it, because they all these guys go and grab him by the arms and legs. They're like, pin him down, do something. And Goku's just like, okay. And then just transforms into Super Saiyan to basically like burst all of these guys off of him. So that's the way that I was interpreting it, but it could also be interpreted the way that you're interpreting it, where he just transforms and then explodes a ki blast off of him.
I mean, it could be that way. I'm used to like building up to transformations, whereas this one, I don't. Maybe it is supposed to be that way. I don't know. It also feels weird that this is the spot that they go to unveil Super Saiyan, because it really doesn't feel like he needs to do that. So it's like Super Saiyan's cool. There's nowhere else really to go with this. So I really liked the first fight. I have a bunch of mixed feelings about this fight. I don't think it's animated as well. I don't think it's needed at all. The Super Saiyan reveal isn't really for anything other than for the reveal itself, even though I think once you come back after the transformation and you see that golden aura on him, I think it's a very iconic shot. I think that's fantastic. This fight feels more like junk food than the previous one. I will say that it's fine. But I didn't need this fight here. And yeah, I have a lot of criticisms of this one actually. So
I think you and I are mostly on the same page. Maybe just probably feel just a little bit different about the Super Saiyan transformation. In fact, the sequence just following the Super Saiyan transformation, I watched frame by frame, like you were saying, because I was looking at it, I was like, this looks really weird, because Goku's still got that golden aura, and he kind of like teleports in front of one of these big guys and gives him just like a finger flick to the head. But the frames, or the shot right after that, the big guy basically gets like knocked down onto a big group of other people. But if you actually watch it, I looked at it the first time. It was like,
I know what you're pointing out. Yep.
It feels very awkward. I looked and I'm like, why did that feel so awkward to me? And then I went back and watched it. This big guy basically does not get knocked onto anybody. He basically just gets knocked over, and then everybody behind him just falls over. It just feels so weird. Like you could kind of say like, okay, well, maybe the force of him falling or the force of the flick knocked everybody else over, but there's nothing visual to indicate that that's the case. So it doesn't feel good at all.
Yeah, it's so funny because we had a fight against a bunch of just goons last episode, and I'm over the moon about it. Then they do the same thing the next episode. I'm like, I didn't need this. There's a lot that I can criticize. It was fun, sure, but I mean, there are some things that bother me, like why did he transform Super Saiyan here? That could have been a way cooler reveal later on at a more important point. It could have been so much more fun. I don't know what this is. It's having cake after your candy. I didn't need this. I'm not going to go on too much longer about this because I think I've said my piece, but it's a fine fight. I just don't think it's needed.
Yeah, I do want to circle back, since we've kind of been picking on this fight though and just say overall I actually do enjoy it. It's just kind of like you said, Dayton, we're kind of comparing Daima to Daima at this point. Because really it's a fun watch. It's very short. There are a few moments that are less well animated, and then a couple moments though that are also really well animated. Like when he's dodging the spears, you see him like dipping and weaving, and his hair's moving really dynamic. So that
I also found that jarring because there would be like this amazingly animated sequence followed up by this like frames where Goku's arms are like skipping through the air from like in front of his body to out punching, and there's no fluid motion. I thought that was kind of jarring, going from good animation to bad animation back and forth like that.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, that's a tough one for me because admittedly the old, like the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z did some of that at times too.
If we didn't have the previous episode's fight, I'd be singing a completely different tune. But the previous episode was so good. I'm comparing it to literally the thing I just watched like 5 minutes ago.
It's a good point. That fight in episode 4 is really well done, really well polished. So yeah, that's fair. I still had fun watching this one. And I think
I did too. I didn't walk away like upset or anything, but I had my critiques. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we're here to talk about it, so we're gonna dig in. But
I will say, you know, the one guy, the last guy he did hit, it is cool that he like punches forward at him and then knocks him back with like the flick of his finger, really showcasing the difference between him and Kadan's most seasoned warriors.
Yeah, 100%. Especially because this was like one of the biggest dudes on the fighting field here. But this fully just is a full-on flawless victory for Goku. Again, he's not really been challenged up to this point at all. And this just kind of turns into our crew is now getting a plane from King Kadan so they can travel across the demon realm.
Yeah, and Supreme Kai even asks Kadan if he could help their friends back in the outer realm get a pin number so that way they could use Warp Sama to get in. And King Kadan gives the order to steal a plane that can help get the rest of the Z fighters the pin number. Pansy has officially joined the crew at this point, so she's not staying home with her father. She's going with them on this adventure, so they are going to have a tech guru. And it's at this point, I think you mentioned this, while the plane is being loaded, this is where Supreme Kai stops Goku, and he mentions that it's weird that Glorio approached King Kadan first, and also didn't mention anything about them being turned into kids.
Yeah. Do you have any? Well, maybe we should talk about it once we're finished with all.
There's a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we do need to talk. Yep. So yeah, during this next episode, let's talk about Glorio because we got to get to one other thing.
I think you're right. But we basically in this sequence we do get introduced to one other new character here. I don't even know.
Did you get his name? I didn't. I forgot to write it down.
I did get his name, Hybis.
Okay.
And I don't even know how to describe him. He's got a great character design. Like I will say, character designs in Daima have been on point in my opinion. They're very simple, but simple in a good way. Like they don't seem like they've been overdone or tacky or anything. And this guy has like this little tuft of hair on the top of his head and is basically like practicing ballet when King Kadan is like, hey, Hybis, go get these guys as friends from Earth and bring them here so that they can help. And Hybis is like, but I was going to go to the salon, which is just like the gag is that he's just got this tiny little tuft of hair on his head. It's kind of fun. It's kind of goofy.
When he looks at where he needs to go, he goes, hey, we only have small planes and I'm going to need a medium plane to go there. And King Kadan says, not a problem. Men, go steal a medium plane.
It's kind of fun. Even the device actually too that Hybis is using to like look at Earth and actually zoom in on Kami's lookout or Dende's lookout. I keep calling it that. It kind of looks like a dragon radar. It looks like a way more advanced dragon radar, which I thought was kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of little details like that that kind of remind you where you're at, which I really do appreciate. Like the world is actually thought out.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Uh,
The
and
plane takes off, begins breaking down, and this leads us into episode 6, Lightning, where the plane crashes about as safely as possible.
Yeah, important note: the Pansy goes with the crew. So she has basically officially joined the party in the plane crash because she overloaded it with crap.
Yeah, and Pansy gets to work. And she's fixing up the plane and unloading some crap while Goku goes to drop a number 2. And
That's right.
while Goku's off doing his business, the space police arrive. I already forgot how to say the name of Goma's military police. But they arrive and they announce that they are searching for basically the description of Goku before leaving. So now we know that the military police are out actively looking for Goku.
Yes. Did you? I might have missed it. Did you give the title for this episode?
Yes, Lightning. Episode 6 is Lightning.
There it is. Yeah, I really like these like very succinct episode titles. But yeah, we basically know that the police are out looking for Goku. Goku narrowly misses getting caught because he's taking a pee.
No, it's a poop because he needs toilet paper.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. He is taking a deuce.
And he asks Pansy for it, who's upset about how crass Goku is.
I love it. This kind of turns into once our plane is fixed and our heroes get on the way again, Pansy is digging into Shin and basically his history as a Glind.
I feel like Pansy is kind of their way to help non-Dragon Ball viewers learn more about Dragon Ball, if that makes sense. She's kind of the curious mind that, well, all of us who have watched Dragon Ball know a lot of this stuff. She's going to be the one that kind of brings stuff back up.
And even like some of this information is even new for Dragon Ball fans too, with Shin basically expresses that Glind are not born in a traditional sense, but they're born of a tree. They're basically like, in a way, they're like plants. And so we find that Degasu and Shin are brothers because they were born of the same tree. I don't remember if these trees have a specific name, but he does express that there are 5 of them, and the fact that he and Degasu, as well as Dr. Arinsu, were all born of the same tree makes them siblings. But there's something like 200 plus years apart in terms of when they were birthed from the tree.
So like sibling is a very loose term when it comes to this. It's just we're of the same tree lineage. Our acorns are related.
I mean, the same literal family tree, I suppose.
So yeah, because early on, when you say, "Oh, so it's my brother or my sister or whatever," you assume that this means that Supreme Kai might have known these other Glenn, but he might not know anything about them. It's kind of ambiguous to me now.
Yeah, he says a few things about Dr. Rinsu, like she was basically like a mad scientist, blah blah blah, very ambitious. So he knows at least bits and pieces here, but might not know them well necessarily. I think we do get some details about there being like multiple sons or something.
Yeah, there's I think there's 2 suns, but the sun's still going down. So the day's coming to an end. They're gonna stop and rest. And Glorio suggests that they stop and eat and sleep while they can. Pansy offers to continue flying them, and he's like, "No, we got to rest up while we've got the opportunity." And so they find a cave, and Goku eats a boatload and passes out, looking like a overstuffed marshmallow at this point. And the crew goes to sleep. But in the middle of the night, we see Glorio sneak out, and he makes secret contact with Arinsu. And Supreme Kai notices that Glorio's kind of acting sus and sneaking around at night.
Yeah. We don't get a lot of details, basically just that things are going well. But yeah, this just adds more questions to what does Dr. Arinsu want? What does Glorio want? Why did he go get Goku? Like
My
it's
assumption after seeing this was that Goma was threatening to pull funding for Rinsu. So I'm guessing she wants him removed from power, probably so she can take power. Whether that's get more funding or sit in the seat of the throne, I'm not sure.
it's a good thought. That's probably like the most the with the information we have up to this point, that would make the most sense, right? One other thing I forgot to bring it up with King Kadan. King Kadan actually mentioned too that he wants to get rid of Goma, partly because Goma treats the other Majin like crap. But King Kadan mentioned that if Goma is out of power, King Kadan is going to take over. And I don't know if he meant that because so King Kadan is the king of the third demon world. I'm what it made me wonder is we didn't really get to see why King Goma became king of the whole demon realm after Dabura died. I wonder though if it has anything to do with like Dabura was basically the king of the realm as well as king of Demon World 1, and then Goma was king of Demon World 2, and then King Kadan is king of Demon World 3. So did that mean then that when Dabura died, Goma basically got bumped up? And if Goma dies, then King Kadan is going to get bumped up. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was just interesting to me.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like, as far as we know, he sounds like he actually has good intentions. Since Goma, I mean, with what little we've seen with like his increased taxes, it sounds like he's not really a good dude. And Kadan mentioned that he wanted to take the seats that way he could bring peace to the realm. So it sounds like he's a good acting individual. So I don't think Kadan's doing anything shady. But it does seem like Glorio is doing something shady. But who knows at this point? Maybe he could have his own motives inside all of this too, because he was spying on Goma and them. So I have no idea what his intentions are, but he is definitely a wild card. There's just no information on him.
I think you're right. I think there's definitely more going on there with Glorio than we still can even guess at the moment. But as Glorio comes back into the cave, our heroes are basically met with a threat in the form of this giant purple minotaur who says that he's going to eat all of them.
Yeah, and Glorio tells everyone to just relax, that he'll take care of the monster, but Goku whines, asking that Glorio let him do it since Glorio isn't that strong. And this sidetracks everything because Glorio is, I don't know, slightly offended from what I can tell, and asks Goku to prove it. And so the two step outside in the middle of this monster walking towards them to have a bout and settle this, with the monster actually standing with them, just kind of watching this fight starting to take hand.
I think the Minotaur even asks, "Am I being ignored here?"
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it feels very much like a Dragon Ball, like original Dragon Ball gag for the most part.
And the best part about this is that Goku decides to even fight with one arm behind his back.
I like this is another thing to me that once we wrap all this up, we got to talk about Goku's characterization because even this to me is like, I don't know. I know Goku's playful, but this feels almost like egotistical in a way.
This entire scene, I wanted to get your take on because I have slightly mixed feelings about all this, and I don't know where I land with this Glorio situation. But I'll go ahead and just go through it so that way we can really talk about it. But we see the two face off, and there's this brief exchange of blows that are honestly pleasantly animated. Like they look pretty good. It's the new budget animation. Looks awesome. Glorio decides to launch some sort of magical attack that looks very similar to Ki. But Goku dodges it, and it's at this point that Supreme Kai asks Goku to fight a bit more seriously so that way they can really gauge Glorio's power. So Goku kicks it up, and we see him fly past waves of crackling energy coming from Glorio, delivering a hard blow across the midsection of Glorio's body that sends him rocketing back, cratering into a rock formation. But we see him recover with like this electrical crack of this magical whip, and he begins powering up his magical energy. Goku goes through a Super Saiyan transformation, this time with a little bit of a glow up. And one thing I liked about it is that, typically when they power up, there's like the floating rocks. I like that when one of the rocks passed by his face, when it covered up his eye, that's when it changed from black to blue. I thought that was very artistically done. So I do want to point that out. But yeah, we see Goku beginning to kind of like channel his energy. Glorio fires off his mega beam. We see the air just crackling and rings of air puffing out to the side as it flies through the air, kind of emphasizing its strength. But Goku's Super Saiyan form easily counteracts the blast, and then Goku kind of movement line disappears, reappears behind Glorio, signifying the end of the battle. Did I miss anything in there?
I think you've got most of it. I want to circle back into some of those pieces because there's some stuff in here some stuff that I really, really like. I think so. First off, this is probably like the first big 1v1 fight that we've gotten in Daima, period. It's still, it's not, well, it's still pretty one-sided. Goku wins going Super Saiyan, but we're not even really sure that he needed to go Super Saiyan. This is also the namesake for the episode title because Glorio's attacks have this like lightning magic effect to it, and his last charged beam actually looks really, really cool. I also really like, so when Glorio's charging his attack, when Gloria is charging his attack, Goku basically like looks at his fist and it glows with like the Super Saiyan aura. And Goku's like, I think this will work. Like, it's cool to see Goku kind of like planning out how he's going to respond because he is a fighting savant for sure. Also, I don't think you've been super impressed with the Super Saiyan transformations, Dayton, but I love this one. I really, really like it because to me, it puts a lot more. I mean, in a day and age with Dragon Ball where original Super Saiyan has kind of lost its luster, this really puts a lot of respect on the Super Saiyan transformation where Goku is actively like charging up for it. He's actively like yelling. You do, like you said, Dayton, you get the rocks like floating up, him breaking up the land. He starts with his hair like black and then it goes up and then slowly fades to the blonde. And his eye doesn't change until, like you said, the rock like floats past and then you see that like shimmer of blue. I think it's really, really cool. And especially because for the rest of the characters present, aside from Shin, they don't know what this is. They're like, what happened? What's he doing?
Yeah, I like this Super Saiyan reveal more than the previous one. I'm still not sure if he needed to go Super Saiyan though. So for me, it's still like, okay, neat. I wish Gloria would have pushed Goku a little bit more, that would have been nice. Man, I hate to say it, but sometimes, like, at some point around this fight, I started getting a little bit of, man, and I'm not going to like making this comparison, Dragon Ball Super vibes, where I feel like I'm getting pointless fight after pointless fight, because I don't feel like there was anything really truly conveyed in this fight at this point. Because his fight with Glorio, it could have been quicker. Glorio could have been more impressive and pushed Goku a little bit further. But it's just another measuring stick moment. But it's not one that, I don't know, I didn't feel a payoff with this one. And I would have liked a little bit more of a payoff.
It's funny because I think most of the points that you're making, I largely agree with you. I mean, I've been the one kind of also harping that most of these fights have there's no tension, there's no stakes.
Hmm.
Um, and Dragon Ball, it's a fighting anime, so it's nice that I'm pretty sure 5 out of 6 episodes we've had at least some sort of fight sequence in, which is good. And the animation, this one to me, I think is comparable, honestly, to the animation in that episode 4 fight. Different type, of course, but still very well animated. Um, the we do, like you said, we kind of get that measuring stick on Glorio, where it's like, okay, well, he's powerful, but he's still nowhere near as powerful as Goku. And I think both of us kind of said we're not really sure if Goku even needed to go Super Saiyan here. To say nothing of the fact that we don't know if Goku is still holding back. Like, can he go Super Saiyan 2 or even Super Saiyan 3? Or is he just currently incapable of doing so? Like, we're not sure at this point what Goku's upper limit is. We still haven't seen it. So, and again, like in terms of pacing, we're 6 episodes in and we don't know like what the boundaries of Goku's power is in his current form, which is kind of strange.
And I feel, I probably did some of this to myself, because I actually got a little bit hyped when they were getting ready to square off. I was like, oh, it's like this is going to be interesting, because I assumed at this point that Glorio's seen Goku's base form, fight a couple times now. I assumed that Glorio would have been comparable to Goku's base form.
Mm-hmm.
And that this would have been a fight that pushed Goku to Super Saiyan or that next level. But I didn't feel that push. And I think that's why I walked away from this fight with a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Is I kind of had some hopes that Glorio would be a little bit of a badass here. And while his abilities were cool, like the electric whip thing that he can do, very neat. And we actually get to see, I guess, like battle magic in action in the demon realm, which is kind of cool. But we didn't see a lot of it. And I don't know. I just wanted a little bit more push because this should have been, at this point, the first real opponent that Goku fought, but it still wasn't even a fight.
I largely agree with you. You actually made me think of one thing. I think one thing that would make this a really good payoff later. I don't know if they're going to do this, but I'll put this out there. If this fight ended up being such that Glorio was actually holding back, and we find out later that Glorio is more powerful or has more powers that he could have used against Goku, I think that would actually reframe this fight for me and see it as being much more interesting moving forward. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if they do something like that, I mean, they got me. You got me good. But we'll have to see. I walked away from this like wanting a little bit more. I felt a little like I was only half full from this fight.
And that's I think that's kind of what I was getting at too, is that most of these fights are like they're starting to scratch my Fido itch for Dragon Ball, but they're not quite satisfying it, which is it's a little bit frustrating in that way.
Well, that's why I had to watch One Punch Man twice because the first time I watched it, I didn't realize it was satire. I don't watch enough anime, so I had no idea. I was like, this is terrible. Why would anybody like this character?
That's amazing.
I'm also kind of getting those vibes when I didn't understand what One Punch Man was.
That's really, really funny. Yeah, this though is, I don't know. I'm still like each time that one of these fights comes up, I get super excited and I enjoy the fights thoroughly. This is probably like the second or third time I've watched through these episodes. So one, I'm kind of like watching them more with a more keen eye. And then two, we're meant to kind of talk about them and, pick apart the pieces and stuff. So there's a lot to like here, and there's definitely some stuff that is like, I think they could either improve upon, or maybe we're just missing some context moving forward. We'll have to continue watching and see.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many parts that look, even if I dislike a fight, there's usually a sequence in that fight somewhere that I think is animated very well. I don't think there's been a fight so far where I've actively just wholly disliked. And there's always been some redeeming qualities of every fight in this. I can't say the same about any Dragon Ball series. Even in original Dragon Ball, there's filler fights that look terrible in it at points. It's so far in Daima, this fight with Gloria is less of a filler fight. But there's been, I don't know, I guess like the fight with the bandits is kind of a filler fight when they're in the bar. It's not really an important fight, but it's well done. It's fun. And there's at least some redeeming sides to it. So at least even with the kind of half full, half empty feeling I get walking away from some of these fights, there's good parts to talk about in every one of these.
Yeah, and I would even say, well, so like a couple of things where the fights, even the fights that have like less than stellar animation, even the bad, if we want to say bad for Daima standards animation, still looks good. If you want to compare it to like some older Dragon Ball stuff, it's still solid. So it's like we're judging with a pretty harsh stick here. And then even like the bandit fight, actually I would almost even say the bandit fight in the bar is probably more important than like the fight at Kadan Castle, because the fight in the bar ends with the plane getting stolen.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the plot device or the impetus for them losing the plane, then they have to travel on foot. Like almost everything, even though we've talked about the pacing being a little bit slow, almost everything that's happening in Daima is pushing the story forward in some way, shape, or form. There is a lot of like exposition and covering stuff that we already know. I think some of that, like we said, is to help new Dragon Ball fans or non-Dragon Ball fans, but most of the beats are continuing to kind of push us in the right direction. It's just, I wish it would be a little bit quicker about it.
Yeah, because I don't know. It's interesting. We've just been traveling for so long, and I want to get somewhere and meet a big bad guy and actually get hooked in, because I'm like, all right, Gloria came and got us. We're going to go here, but the plane got stolen. Now it's going to take longer to get there. Now we got there, and okay, now we need to go to this other place. It's just like, oh my God, like, can we just please get somewhere and do something? Because I'm tired of traveling around. I want to do something. I want to have a villain in a big fight. Like, I'm getting a little antsy here.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think we've only got just a tiny bit to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, let's knock that out real quick, because after this fight, we cut over to our side characters at the lookout, and Bulma has just finished the ship, so Vegeta, Piccolo, and Kibito all climb aboard to take their leave and meet up with Goku, and then the ship flashes red and falls back to the ground after rising only a few feet, and they're not able to fly off.
I have a feeling. I know how you feel about this.
Damn it! Why can't we have more characters actually do stuff? Oh, I was so like, when that happened, I just bit my lip and I was just like, please, I want more characters.
I know exactly what you mean, and that's a lot of people's complaints about Dragon Ball GT. I mean, people literally call it Dragon Ball Goku time, because it's all Goku all the time.
That's good.
I mean, it's accurate. And I know people have made comparisons between Daima and GT. We've talked about it a little bit. But right now, Daima is pretty much, we don't have the GT, but it is pretty much just been Goku time. We've got Glorio, I guess, as a new character. We've got Pansy introduced, but the focus is definitely Goku, and we've kind of been teasing at getting Piccolo and Vegeta, and Kibito, and maybe even Bulma out here, but they keep putting barriers. I will say, Kadan did send Hybus on his way to grab Piccolo and the others, so hopefully that will result in something in the future.
Yeah, it's we'll see. I hope they show up. Man, I since yeah, that's everything this episode. I'm going to sum up my feelings up to this point because I have very mixed feelings about Daima so far because I love some things and then I'm getting antsy and a little annoyed with other things. Like I want to get to the meat at this point. Like we're 6 episodes in. We've had some great animation, cool looking scenes. And the characters they've introduced, I think, are interesting. Goma's interesting. I like that we've got the different, I guess, Glind or whatever they're called, the different supreme beings playing their parts. So they've set up a great narrative. I love learning about the demon world. It's such a cool and different and mystical place. But man, I need some story. I need something to push me forward. And along those lines, we got to talk about the way Goku's depicted in this because I will say off the bat, Goku is a weird person to try and pin a personality to in his current state, right? Because he's, I don't know how old he was when he got transformed. I imagine in his, 40s, 30s?
I think in his 40s.
Okay. So he's got like the experiences of a 40-year-old, but he has the body and likely, developed brain of a teenager or whatever he's supposed to be. 13, I'm guessing. I don't know how old he's supposed to be.
I think way younger actually, because
really?
I think Goma's wish was to turn them into like first graders.
First graders, that's right. Yeah.
So they're like 6 or something.
That's a little aggressively young. Okay, yeah, that's right. We did talk about that. Oh, buddy. That's weird. I don't know what to think about Goku being a kid at this point because you can't really compare him to any actual 6-year-old because he wouldn't act anything like Goku. So you have to kind of like roughly feel with your gut like what Goku as a kid would say and do and act like. And I don't know, like it feels like the immaturity like comes and goes. Like I don't understand it. And when it arises at some points, sometimes it's jarring and sometimes it works. It feels like a really mixed bag to me.
I'm really torn. Like it's hard to say if this wish has impacted the characters' personalities because if we look at all the other characters who got wished to be younger, Shin is a weird one because it's hard to say. We don't know what Glind are like as children. But let's look at Piccolo, Vegeta, Bulma. Bulma is still basically acting like herself. Very competent, understands technology. She's trying to fix the ship. Okay, makes sense. Really doesn't seem like that's affecting her personality in any way, shape, or form. We haven't seen a ton from Vegeta, but still basically himself. Just, hey, I want to go fight. I'm not going to let these guys get away with turning us into children.
Yeah.
Piccolo, and Piccolo's, I guess, a little bit of a weird case too. But doesn't really seem to be changing his personality much, even though we haven't seen a ton from him. Master Roshi, I guess we saw a little bit from him. He didn't seem to change his personality much other than wanting to mac on the ladies because he's a young kid. I don't know. It's hard for me to say whether or not this wish
seems like it doesn't really
changing
affect them much.
Exactly. And so if it's not affecting them or not affecting them much, I have to assume that this is just adult Goku.
Oh no. If that's the case, then some of his shenanigans are a lot less excusable.
It feels a lot weirder to me if that's the case, right? Because if that's the case, can I reconcile this version of Goku with the version of Goku that we saw in the Buu saga? Like the Goku who was a mentor to the next generation, the Goku who was very, very smart about the way that he used his time and his energy, either fighting Boo or training the kids or whatever the case was. I don't know if I can see this Goku and Daima being that same Goku in the Boo arc.
Yeah, that's weird. If they all were acting kind of childish, then okay, cool. But you're right. Everyone else seems to be not really mentally affected by the age change, but Goku does, at least more than the rest of them, or something like that. Yeah, it's very strange. Like Goku laughing at the fish hysterically and stuff like that. That's not something that 40-year-old Goku would have really have done. Teenage Goku probably would have done it. Kid Goku definitely would have done it, but Daima Goku? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good read on him. I don't know whether he's a kid or if he's an adult. It feels like they're trying to blend them.
I agree. It's a struggle for me. Like I want to say or justify it by, oh, he got wished into a kid, but like I said, if you look at all the other kids, like their personalities and intelligence hasn't really changed much. It's just hard to really like reconcile that in my brain.
I wonder if that means that Dende is got like his brain of like an adult, but he doesn't have the developed motor functions to actually speak. So he's just like this adult stuck in this baby's body that can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean,
that'd be
totally
horrible.
Possible.
Like that'd be terrible. What a horrible fate.
Didn't we even get something like that with Goten and Trunks? Weren't they like thinking or
they like
something?
Telepathically may have said something to each other, but were babies, and it was very confusing.
Yeah, that was a little strange.
I mean, I can do like suspension of disbelief, but at some point it's like I have to be able to ask some questions, and this is like a main plot point: is Goku a kid, or is Goku an adult in a kid's body?
Yeah, it's been a struggle for me in terms of the writing for his character. I don't think it's as bad as the way that his character was written in Dragon Ball Super, and there is potentially the underlying reason of him being wished into a kid that could justify the way that he's acting. And also on top of that, I still think he's fun. Like it's fun and feels on brand for Goku as a character, just not for his character progression and where he's at in his age and his story. Like you said, Dayton, this feels more like maybe teen or kid Goku, and I could see that, but it also, he has the experience of his adult self, so it is such a weird blend.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't think too much into it until you mentioned it, and it's confusing. I mean, there are scenes I love, like when Goku's fighting and he's somersaulting in the bar and he like grabs that haunch of meat in his mouth while he's moving. My thing is, I could see most forms of Goku doing something like that, where like these guys aren't actually a threat, but like I'm gonna have fun and I'm not gonna stop eating.
Yeah, and like I said, most of the stuff that he's doing, like I like it. It feels like I can recognize these elements of Goku. It's a little bit hard to place it in terms of the way that he's grown as a person and as a character. It's fun though. Like I still enjoy it, and it feels like Goku-ish.
for me, I'm still waiting for some meat. I'm waiting for that early series, big fight that really showcases the bad guy or the situation. I'm waiting for that, that fight with, Raditz. I'm waiting for, the first big fight with, a major villain somewhere or something. For me, that's the big thing I feel like I'm missing. The thing that's really keeping this from feeling like a Dragon Ball series for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think you made a comment our last episode about how Daima is kind of like carving its own path in a way. Like it's really kind of its own thing, which is is both nice and refreshing, but is also challenging. Like if we as the audience have certain expectations and those expectations are not being met, we're probably going to be a little bit disappointed or at least put off balance a little bit as we're watching through Daima. And I definitely kind of felt that. I think I feel the same way that you do, Dayton, where maybe it's like the Dragon Ball Z fan in me that I'm like, I really want to see, where's the big bad? Where's a good fight? Where's the tension? Where's the stakes? And we just aren't getting that yet.
I need something, anything. And yeah, I think, and for me, it was coming to the realization that the tone of this isn't really comparable to other Dragon Ball series. So if you're looking for those, those heart-wrenching moments in fights and some of the brutal beatdowns that maybe we've seen in the past, you probably won't see those in that series. This one's going to be a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, and it's trying to be, right? It's trying to be just fun. But even though the tone has been fun, I still need some fun stuff to happen. I feel like I'm jonesing for it over here. So there's been flares of it, there's been flashes in the pan, but yeah, for me, Daima needs to get moving to something. Because while there's a lot of things I like, we need to get somewhere with it. I'm still itching for that big hook in my mouth to really draw me in.
Yeah. I think it's funny because we've kind of had a number of issues or complaints or critiques or whatever about Daima as a whole in this first 6 episodes. And yet I just want to reiterate that for me watching it, especially the first watch through, like when I get to sit down and see a new episode, even like anytime there's a new fight sequence with Goku and stuff, I am like a giddy 12-year-old child, just over the moon, getting to see newly animated Dragon Ball stuff, getting to see Goku fight, hearing Masako Nozawa do the voice of Goku. Like all of it makes me feel like a little kid watching Dragon Ball Z for the first time. So I'm loving getting to see it. I'm actually despite the critiques, I'm really enjoying it. I'm just hoping that we get to some more tension and stakes moving forward and speed up the pace. But overall, I'm having a lot of fun with it.
That's all it's missing for me, is just give me a hook and suddenly my everything goes up like a bunch of points. Suddenly I'm having a lot more fun. Right now it just feels like Weird Adventures in Demon Land.
Yeah, admittedly, I think that's kind of what they're doing at the moment.
I am glad we watched Sandland before this, though, because I am noticing all the little references that they're sprinkling there, or not even all of them. Noticing some of the references. I'm sure I've missed quite a few.
It's got a lot of Sandland vibes, and I like that, at least so far. I hope it shifts to increasing the stakes. I feel like it has to. Like there's
no way it does. It's still got Dragon Ball in the title card, so they've got to be coming.
Yeah. So I think maybe we're eager for it. We're eagerly awaiting it. Hopefully we'll get it maybe in the next 3 episodes. We'll see.
Yeah, that could be exciting.
But I think I've pretty much talked about how I felt about these 3 episodes. Do you have anything you wanted to add, Dayton?
Nope. I'm just waiting for the meat. Give me that damn meat.
All right. Well, then I think that's going to be it for this episode of Instant Transmission, where we discuss everything Dragon Ball. This has been your host, Todd.
And Dayton.
Don't forget, we're on Patreon and Discord. If you want to take a long ride on our Sky Seed, you can find us. You can find us at patreon.com/ITDBpodcast. The Discord link will be in the episode description, but you can also find it and all of our links at linktree/ITDBpodcast. That's linktr.ee/ITDB podcast. Thank you all so much for your support. Be sure to join us next time as we track down our first Tamagami in our continued coverage of Dragon Ball Daima.
It's like you can see the future.
That's right. Goku and crew have a new plan to gather the Demon Realm Dragon Balls to wish themselves back to normal. But they will have to contend with the unbeatable Guardians in order to get their wish granted. Just how powerful are these Tamagami? Will Goku be able to use his full power and transformations against them? Where the heck is Gohan in this show? Find out next time. And to all our fellow Dragon Ball fans, stay safe out there, and remember to keep rocking the dragon.
Oh, God. Just spreading our sky seed. Oh, God.
Take a long ride on my sky seed.
Oh, God.